So as I record this, it's kind of crazy for me to consider just how many of you watching this video might not already be familiar with the information that I'm about to present. Because in the time that I was waking up, as we like to say, and researching this information, which goes back just over a decade, this was kind of like common knowledge. But I've been shopping it around recently, and a lot of people haven't heard of this. And what I'm talking about is Deagle.com. Now, Deagle.com, as the story goes, is a website that has been long since verified as an intelligence operation, a legitimate intelligence operation that's resourced by different governments and militaries. And it seems to specialize in information regarding like Air Force stuff and military aerospace and fighter jets and all types of things like that are way outside of my area of expertise. All right, now what makes this website so famous to truthers or people in the know, or maybe I should say infamous, is something that they refer to as their forecasts. And I guess what they do is just, take a bunch of mathematical statistics from all types of political and mundane areas of everyday life and just all this metadata, and they crunch these numbers and they come up with forecasts for the world for every major country. And when I say forecast, I'm talking about like population growth, population density, GDP, resources, stuff like this. And somebody years ago brought it to everyone's attention that if you're to go to Deagle.com and look up their projections for the year 2025, that you will notice something really shocking and pretty scary. Let's just look at it together so you can see for yourself. Okay, so if you look here, you see United States of America. This last projection is year 2017. Population is 327 million. And now I think we're still right around there. I think we're maybe at 328 million now or something like that. And some of these, density is 34 inhabitants per square mile. The gross domestic product is 19 trillion. GDP per capita 59. Budget is 6 trillion. Okay. And now you scroll over to forecast for 2025 and look at this. The population is now at 100 million from 327 million in 2017 to only 100 million in 2025. So you're talking about a third of the population. You're talking about 2/3 of the population disappearing. And I say disappearing because, I think the first thing that comes to mind for us is some type of mass genocide or something. But without any further information, all we are seeing here is that the population is expected to decrease by 2/3. And look at some of these other numbers too. The GDP goes from 19 trillion in 2017 to only $2.4 trillion in 2025. And all these stats are really scary. I mean, the military budget goes from $637 billion to merely $32 billion. Now, again, I know for a lot of you, I'm not bringing any new information to the table with this one, but I haven't seen anybody revisit this topic for a while. And I think with everything that we're going through right now in 2020, it is pretty timely and it's pretty interesting to consider the timeline of what's happening right now with the projections of how this might play out over the next 5 years. And then you consider, we've been hearing about this Deagle.com report for years now. I'm talking, I first became privy to this in I think 2013, and at that time it was already kind of old news. So it must have been about a decade now that these numbers have been out there, maybe even longer, but at least dating back to 2013 or so. And one more thing on the topic of these forecasts. There's only one country that seems to be severely affected by this drastic population reduction, and that's the United States of America. So for my fellow American citizens, hold on and buckle up, because there's some people in high places that are anticipating some really dark days in our near future. So sit back and try to maintain whatever level of comfort that you can muster as we delve into this extremely uncomfortable topic of depopulation. For those who take the time to do the research, when you're first waking up to the reality that modern history is defined by social programming and psychological conditioning and strategized and well-executed agendas that are motivated by occult spiritualism, more so than it is defined by happenstance or organic conflict, you will eventually and inevitably arrive at possibly the darkest of all well-documented agendas, depopulation. So depopulation means to intentionally decrease the population of a human society, usually by covert means. We're talking about literally killing people off here. And yeah, as I said before, this is an actual agenda that really exists, and it's not only an American agenda, but it's a vision that's shared by tyrannical governments and ruthless dictators throughout history. And I also said that this agenda is well documented. That might be the understatement of the year, because there's been countless books written about this, there's been epic debates about it, there's been entire political campaigns on this topic, because what we're really talking about here is eugenics. Okay, so Wikipedia, and I know, it's Wikipedia, but Wikipedia says, eugenics is a set of beliefs and practices that aim to improve the quality of a human population, historically by excluding people and groups judged to be inferior, or promoting those that are judged to be superior. So who does that sound like? And now the concept of eugenics has been around as long as man's been a slave to sin, but the term itself was first coined by Sir Francis Galton in the 1880s. And this Galton guy just happens to be the cousin of none other than Charlie Darwin, who considers black people to be inferior to whites. Which, by the way, what's up with that? The same mainstream liberal society that breaks down in tears at the punchline of a funny racist joke is the same mainstream liberal society who fawns at this Chuck Darwin guy, who regarded black people to be more primitive than whites. You know, so yeah, Darwin's theory of evolution is really racist as heck. But hey, that's enough about Charlie. My point is that his cousin, Francis Galton, is the one who coined the term eugenics. Another popular eugenicist, who has a much higher death toll than Hitler, by the way, would be Margaret Sanger, the founder of the human butcher shop that we know as Planned Parenthood. And look, I know that should be obvious. I mean, abortion itself is the epitome of eugenics. And we don't need a Deagle.com conspiracy video to recognize that. I mean, in New York, over 25% of babies get killed instead of being born to this day. Anyways, old Margie Sanger, she was a full-blown, proud and outspoken eugenicist. And she said the most merciful thing that a large family can do for a baby is to kill it. And I'm paraphrasing here, but she also said, we can't let people know that we're trying to exterminate the black population. Look that up. And this person is the founder of Planned Parenthood. And you know who was the head of Planned Parenthood? Bill Gates Sr. Bill Gates' dad was the head of Planned Parenthood for a while. Did you know that? Yeah, so Bill Gates was raised by eugenicists and has himself donated tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars to Planned Parenthood. And that's why we shouldn't at all be concerned or alarmed by the fact that he seems to have been put in charge of this current crisis that we're in for some odd reason. Some odd reason that's probably worth billions of dollars, by the way. But anyway, speaking of President Gates, don't forget about this.
First, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
You see, now you understand. That's why I said we have absolutely no cause for concern regarding Mr. Gates. But anyways, Gates works in close alliance with the Rockefeller Foundation, who, by the way, is also behind the Trilateral Commission and the Council on Foreign Relations and the Bilderberg Group. And let's see what David Rockefeller has to say about all this.
The United Nations can and should play an essential role in helping the world find a satisfactory way of stabilizing world population and stimulating economic development in a manner that is sensitive to religious and moral considerations.
Come on, there's got to be some famous United Nations billionaire that's not behind this. How about Ted Turner? He seems like a nice guy.
So we've got to stop doing the two suicidal things, which are hanging on to our nuclear weapons
and global
and then after that we've got to stabilize the population. When I was born, there were
so what's wrong with the population? I mean,
with too many people. That's why we have global warming. We have global warming because too many people are using too much stuff. But if there were less people, they'd be using less stuff.
Okay, so now we can see a trend forming. And, you know, you can't really summarize eugenics and depopulation without at least making a brief mention to the Georgia Guidestones.
English, Spanish, Swahili, Hindi, Hebrew, Arabic, Chinese, and Russian. They're the 8 most common languages in the world.
To me, it seems like a weird new 10 Commandments.
Is it 10?
10? That's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, good catch.
Maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature?
Wow.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's a directive?
So I could go on and on with clips like this, but this video is just supposed to be a 15 to 20 minute informative video about Deagle.com, not a 3-hour documentary about the history of depopulation and eugenics. And again, there's countless other examples I could have shared with you of these world influencers who support the idea of eugenics or population control. But honestly, it shouldn't even take seeing clips like that for you to start understanding what we're talking about here. Because the truth is that you've probably been taught about depopulation your whole life. Maybe not the term depopulation, but how about overpopulation? I mean, the anti-human, anti-population agendas that are just in commonplace education are extremely prevalent. Ideas like the growth of our human population isn't sustainable for the space we have on Earth. Or, you know, that humans are responsible for this man-made global warming. Or that humans are like a parasite on this Earth. I'm sure you've heard that one. Or how about the baby in your belly is really just a disposable fetus? And really, your life itself has no eternal, lasting spiritual value. There is no afterlife, you know, there is no God, so we're taught. We're just careening through the universe on this spinning rock, you know, that came into formation during the Big Bang billions of years ago in a big, giant, meaningless vacuum where the individual life doesn't really matter in context to the population as a whole. But frankly, with that kind of worldview, what purpose does the population as a whole have either? The point is that this idea of eugenics has been embedded into the very fabric of our modern philosophy and outlook on society as a whole. And of course, I'm speaking to secular philosophy, not the holy word of God, which claims that every man is beautifully and wonderfully made and stitched together in the mother's womb and even made in the image of God himself. But we aren't taught that. No, we're taught that the human life is a temporary experience that starts at birth and ends at death, and that's just it. And after a few generations of being taught like this, the idea of population control becomes more and more justifiable in the minds of the masses. Okay, so let's jump back into this Deagle.com forecast thing just for a couple minutes. And the first thing that I got to mention now as I'm looking at this site, the website description says Guide to Military Equipment and Civil Aviation. So I guess that they're presenting themselves more as an online military equipment guide and not so much as an outspoken intelligence operation, as I previously claimed. And some are even describing Deagle to be a military weapons manufacturer. And frankly, as you poke around the site, it's kind of hard to define just what it is. Most of the content that I'm scanning through is just detailing the sales and acquisitions of fighter jets and tanks and all manner of wartime machinery. Now certainly, these details would serve little purpose to the interests of the general public. And outside a few survivalists and weapon enthusiasts, I would imagine that military and government agencies would in fact be the most likely consumer of this type of content. And the site seems pretty dang authentic to me. And so to see this info yourself, go here to Deagle.com, that's D-E-A-G-E-L, not to be confused with D-E-A-G-L-E, which is short for Desert Eagle. And now you can navigate around and see some of this stuff that I've been talking about. Okay, and then when you're here at the main page, if you want to see the infamous 2025 population forecast for America, in which 2/3 of our population is gone, you go over here to countries, it's the second one, and United States of America is the second option. And mind you, you can look through all these other countries too. America's not the only country that seems to be affected come the year 2025, but by far we're the most drastic and worst. Okay, and then you have United States of America 2017, which I guess is the last year that they have this data from. Population 327 million, as I mentioned in the intro. And look, right down here they already have forecast 2025, 100 million. 327 million, 100 million. 19 trillion, 1.6 trillion. I think I've talked your ear off enough about all this stuff, but I encourage someone else that has more time on their hands to really delve even deeper into this website and see what you come up with. You guys, the existence of this site doesn't really prove anything. And frankly, I'm not sure just how much credibility that we should even lend to these forecasts. But as I've shown you, the site does seem pretty credible. It is legitimate. And the information here is consistent with all the agendas that I've already touched on earlier in this video. So again, research it yourself. Take it for what it is. Just keep an eye open, and I think you're going to start to see just how popular and influential this eugenics idea really is. I don't know, you guys, we're just in really strange times. So I'm not saying the world's going to end tomorrow, and I'm not trying to present this website's information as absolute proof that 2/3 of the population is about to disappear. But I guess what I am saying is, read the writing on the wall, you guys. I think it's time we get our hearts right with God.
Time is ticking by, and I can feel an explosion inside. And time is ticking by, and I can feel an explosion inside. As in the days of Noah, as in the days of Noah, they'll be drinking, marrying, laughing, as in the days of Noah. What a fool, they say, to build a boat on sand. What a fool, they say. It's never rained before. It's never rained before. It's never rained before. As in the days of Noah, so it will be in the coming of the Son of Man. And what a fool, they say, to fast and pray. And what a fool, they say, come on, it's been 2,000 years. Do you really think that he's coming? Come on, let's just get real. But remember this first, that many, many, many scoffers will come. And when the rain starts falling, it's too late. It's too late. And when the rain starts falling, it's too late. It's too late. As in the days of Noah, it's never rained before. It's never rained before. It's never rained before. It's never rained before. But one day, 2 days, 3 days gone by, and time is ticking by, and I can feel an explosion inside. People get ready, Jesus is coming. And many, 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 many scoffers will rise in that day, and they'll say, it's never rained before. It's never rained before. It's never rained before. It's never rained before. It's never rain, rain, go away. Hide me from the wrath of the Lamb. When the rain starts falling, it's too late. It's too